Welcome to Life Workshop, where we discuss the forgotten basics. So the topic of this episode is the power of asking questions. And it is mainly around the fact that I built my house recently, and I have been living here for about a year or a year and a half, I should say, depending how you start
right.
calculating that at what point, I lived in. But anyways, and as a matter of fact, this is how I know Bo. Bo was the plumber who did the plumbing, and that is how I got to know him.
Gas fitting as well.
That too. And some electrical work. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, anyway, so it's primarily about that, about building the house.
So to go with that, I mean, I'm in this world of construction and renovation and that to a degree, and I see all sorts of things happen like all the time. And a question that I have a lot, and I ask people on a regular basis, really, when I come into these projects or I'm asked to be involved, is where the very first question is, well, why did you decide to build instead of buy something new that's already done, or just renovate the house that you're in now? Because this is a big choice that people have to make. So why did you make that specific decision?
This is the thing, because to build a house, especially if you're not familiar with the process, it's a kind of a painful process at points, at times. But anyway, the reason that I did it was primarily because I wanted a house that does some stuff for me. And believe it or not, that is why I'm calling it the power of asking questions. So I asked questions from myself that, why do I want a house? Can I convert the one that I have? And then the answer was, okay, what this house is supposed to do for you. One of the things that I have been really interested for a lot of years, and it happened that I could do it at this stage in my life, was that to build a house that has basement units, that there are units that are completely independent and other people can live there. Of course, when I say other people, I'm not talking a renter per se, but somebody that you know and you like them, and hopefully they like you, and they can live there. And if they have, and you have all your independence, but at the same time, if you want to get together, is as easy as coming up the stairs and the door is there. So this concept is existing. It's called co-housing. That there are, of course, this is a kind of a bigger perspective, the co-housing, that they build these units, God knows, 15, 20, it's like an apartment building, but a lot of common areas that they have to them. And probably I will talk about this in another podcast, that why do people do that? It's a very healthy way of living. And but anyway, so that was the idea, that I wanted to do something like that, because we didn't have one in Regina at the time. There is one right now, but we didn't have that. And anyway, I said that I'm going to just do it on my own.
Well, isn't that just the same thing as having like a community on, like what separates that, say, from like a Hutterite community? I guess you would have to explain to people what that is in the first place. But of course, anyway, but you know, like all those different sort of communal living.
There are lots of different communities existing. This is another thing. We have all I have a running community. We have bikers community. I don't know. There are tons of different communities are existing. There are online communities, obviously. But for me, it was in a way that I think I told in one episode before that, I like the fact that if I know somebody lives behind a wall.
Oh, right.
Just for the fact that I know that there is a person, a live person there. Hopefully not a dead person.
Right.
We talked about the fact that, for example, you have a pet in your house. One reason is because another heartbeat. So, and it was the same concept, the concept of community, but at the same time, I can have my privacy. If I want to, I just close the door, lock the door. If not, hey, come on up, let's just eat together, do stuff together. And then it's as easy as stepping out and going back to your place. Can that be done with the neighbors? And this thing, the answer is yes, or with other friends, but if you're living physically at a distance, especially with the cold weather that we have in Saskatchewan, in here, sometime in winter it becomes a bit harder. But that was just one part of the reason that I wanted to build this house. I wanted to get that sense of community. And I really sat down, and I should say this. When I wanted to do this, I asked friends to critique me and challenge me on my ideas. And for example, a buddy of mine, Doug, he did that. And he actually played that role of being a jerk pretty good, I should say. No, I'm kidding about that. But, he was really good at it. He has more of a managerial attitude. So he questioned everything, that why do you want to do this way? Can you do it differently to get it for the same thing in an easier way? So, and that helped to mold my idea a lot better. So I was really welcoming those challenges. Because sometimes we think of challenge as a bad thing. No, as a matter, it's a very, very good thing. So I wanted the house, and then I went into details, and I started writing it, by the way. And I really believe in this, that it's better to write it. And then because sometimes when you think, you can think vaguely. Mm-hmm. But when you write, you have to pick your words. You have to sequence it. You have to be more appropriate. So, and I started writing it, and I did. I did write it that I want this house to do this few things for me. That one of them, for example, was that. The other thing that, having a sense of community. The other one was because we are in Saskatchewan again, it gets really cold in here. I wanted to make sure that this house is somewhere that I want to be, especially when the weather is not nice, which is unfortunately most of the year, about maybe 6-7 months really. You cannot be outside as much. Mm-hmm. So that how can I enjoy that? So then I build it with a way that, for example, I have indoor garden because I love the fact of having greenery. Gives me that feeling that you're outside basically. Mm-hmm. Another one was, to have big windows, so that open concept that, you feel that. So these were the things that I started, I wanted from the house. At the same time, I really like to barbecue. But in winter, for example, if you want to barbecue, then you have to shovel the snow, get to the barbecue, put your jacket on, all that crap. Yeah. So what I did, as I built this, veranda that, the barbecue is there. So I can really step out in the middle of the winter when it's minus 40 even, very easily with just a bit of a warmer cloth. But in my sandals, I can step out and simply barbecue. Right. So, and I made the house exactly the way that I wanted. Of course, when I say that, I want to be a bit more accurate about that. When I wanted to do that, I discussed it with some other people because it's a house that I built with the intention to live in it for the rest of my life.
Right.
And I'm not dying anytime soon. So then, and then I wanted to, but I had to have a plan B. If something happens that I want to sell it, I don't want it to become too custom that selling it becomes a challenge or you lose a lot of money. Mm-hmm. So because of that, I took into consideration the things that can be changed very easily to accommodate, those changes for most people, the way that normally a house is done. For example, in here we have only 2 bedrooms, but anyway, so I built it in a way that very easily 2 other rooms can be added, very, very easy, right? Without affecting the quality of the house. So that was one of the things that, and then, so that the house, I wanted to do this thing. And I went very much in detail. I wrote exactly the feeling that I want to get. And I wanted to be in a way to become welcoming because I like to have friends over to eat together and do stuff. Mm-hmm. And, then I asked, how can I achieve that? Because if your house is too modern, then it seems that if you want to step in, you have to put your suit and tie on before, right? You come in. And I didn't want that. So anyway, I had to do a bit of a calculation. How far of a custom I want to go, and then how far I want to make it easy to convert it to something else.
Right, and then when you're talking about that too, then another thing you have to keep in mind is there's all this design aspect, right? Mm-hmm. But you have to keep in mind what the code is, like building code is as well. Like,
of course, the question is that you should have kept in mind that. Because it's done already.
yeah. But you have to keep that in your planning as well.
That's great.
So that brings into a whole other thing is that you decided to be the general contractor on this yourself. So you also, not only the design aspects you had to figure out, but you also had to wrap your head around, say, managing the people who build it, who know what the codes are, and then you have to learn what the codes are, because normally the general contractor is supposed to
know that,
have a general overview of what they are. So now all of a sudden you're coming in here and you have all these design aspects that you want to do, but then you have to make them fit into what the building code like allows, so that your house doesn't like fall over,
Yeah.
Right?
As a matter for that you're saying, because of that, the architect design became about 3 times as much in cost. And I was just fine with it. And I'm not regretting anything. And the reason was that I thought that, again, it was something that we had discussed it with Doug and, some other friends, that they were more educated in the field, but I would discuss things with people that they have been successful in the field and they are educated, not just randomly. Otherwise, really, their opinion, in all honesty, don't matter. But Doug, being a project manager, construction project manager, he knew quite a bit, obviously, about that stuff, as well as his attitude of, being like a manager. It really helped. I talked to him quite a bit, but at the same time, obviously, I have my architect. That with the architect, because of that, the design became a lot more. But there were changes that they were made on paper, not in real, which would be or impossible or very expensive, or you would end up with something that you don't want. Right. And you would regret afterwards. So I made that conscious decision, and it took me a bit longer for the design part of it. So for the drawing, by the way, I should say, it took a lot longer, more than a year. And when I say a year, trust me, I'm talking full time. I was discussing it with a lot of people, if you want to know. I discussed the drawing of the house with more than 400 people. Of course, you will wonder, where do these people come from?
Yeah, what?
This is the thing. Of course, I'm a physical therapist by profession, so I have clients. So a good part of it were about, maybe I would say 350 of them were clients, but the other 50 were friends. And 3 of the friends, I took tons of time with them. One being Doug, the other one was a buddy of mine, Mike. He's an engineer. He's a very, calculated thought, which helped me quite a bit. And then another friend of mine, Karen, and this is actually a very interesting part. I know her as a friend. I didn't know that much, but once I talked to her, and she was one of the best thing ever happened in my life. She just knew quite a bit, and we spent tons of time, and she helped me change a lots of stuff that, to be honest, it would never cross my mind. So for example, the hidden pantry, it was completely her idea. I would like to take the credit for the design. Unfortunately, I can't. But I should tell you this, when I was going to a school in Iran to become a physical therapist, we had a teacher that he said the smartest person is not the one that knows everything. Is the one who knows people who are really good at something and go and ask the question from them. And really kind of stayed with me, and I have been practicing it. So yes, to come up with a design, I had no idea about the design. And then especially this house, because it's built around trees, it's an older area that there were trees that which demolished the previous house, which was actually really in a bad of a shape that had to be gone. It was not worth recovery. And I kept all the trees. So, and I did not want to get rid of them, obviously. And, we had to build a house around that, which became a bit harder. But it was one of the best things that I did. I wanted that feel. They say, when is a good time to plant a tree? 20 years ago.
Yeah, right.
When is the next time? Best time is now. But so I was not willing to cut the trees by any means. That was the exact reason I came to this area. So anyway, that made it a lot more difficult, for the design part. But I took my time and talked to everybody. And as I said, these 3 people that I said, 3 friends, but, some other friends, but at the same time, as I said, with my clients. And the good thing is that with the clients, they come for 20 minutes, half hour or so. If they don't like you talking about that, too bad for them. They'll get over it. No, but I was conscientious about that. That in case I would see somebody doesn't want to, then I wouldn't discuss it with them. But believe it or not, most people were very, okay, very much okay with it. To throw their own ideas. Now I want to say this, and this is, I think, something of interest, because I had a buddy of mine. He said, "But Mo, not everybody likes to talk about the design of your house." I said, "I don't know who those people are." The only way to know is to ask.
Yeah. Right.
And if they don't like it, then I won't talk to them about that.
Yeah. Or else they'll change the subject.
That is
or
correct.
The conversation won't continue, or else people just won't ask any more questions. And then you'll be like, "Oh,
actually, believe it or not, because I was so, I get a little bit obsessed with the stuff. Probably you have noticed that.
Mm-hmm.
I get a bit obsessed with it, and because I was so obsessed about this building, the house, that I was only talking about that. So if I would see somebody is not interested, then what I would do, I would go ahead and, for example, I wouldn't talk to them as much anymore. I would choose the people that I can talk to
about that subject.
Correct. So I would just choose people that they like to talk about the house. Then I would just talk to those people mainly.
Yeah.
Another buddy of mine said that, "But Mo, when people throw a suggestion, you don't listen to them anyways." Then I said, it doesn't mean because I'm asking a question, I'm going to do it. I'm asking to find out the options that I have. And when I asked 10 people, they gave me 10 different ideas. A lot of them are contradicting each other.
Mm-hmm.
The main purpose of asking question is to see the options that are existing that you may not know. And believe it or not, yes, sometimes when you keep asking, you see that there are so many ideas existing when it comes to the house, and then people end up repeating the thing that you have heard over and over,
mm-hmm.
but they don't know who has the new idea.
That's interesting. That brings the whole thing back. What you just said there about that's the power of asking questions. And that's why you go to people and you ask people things, is just to, like you said, I'm reading right now just to get
mm-hmm.
your options. And I've had that before too, where I've been, I really want your opinion. I'll say to someone, I really want your opinion. Like, what is this? And they say, why do you even care? Because you're just going to do whatever the hell you want anyways. And I'm like, yes, I am going to do whatever the hell I want anyways. But I still want to know what you think so that I can round out my decision.
Exactly.
I'm going to make my own decision. Just because I'm asking you doesn't mean that I'm going to do what you say. That's exactly what you said. I don't know what I'm talking.
So you just keep asking. You don't know who has the right answer.
And maybe nobody does.
And maybe
that's
nobody
fine.
does.
And maybe you can take a whole bunch of different things and put them all together to make a super idea,
And actually, I think I came up with a very super idea when it came to the house. But in all honesty, again, was it my ideas? No. The only right thing that they did, the main right thing was that keep asking questions. Don't stop asking questions. Even if people repeat it, which most of the time it happened after so many times, then I would say more than 95% are repeating what you have heard before. But again, I never gave up. I kept asking and I kept asking because I don't know who is the next guy who's going to have something new to tell me. I don't know who that person is.
Oh, I remember asking and asking. I remember that. Man.
But so basically that was the thing. I said, I'm going to be just keep asking till I find, to find the thing. This was one of the interesting part though. Then after a year that I came up with design, because till that point I was asking to really genuinely asking a question to see what people have to say. But then I came up with the design and I submitted it to the city for approval. At this stage, again, I had another client of mine that she was there. So I showed her the drawing and she was very good with she could understand the drawing really quick. And then she made this comment, Mo, the dining room is too small. But at this time, I was not asking her a question genuinely to see what she has to say. I was asking for an approval to tell me what a great job I have done.
Right.
So because of that, I kind of hated her.
Holy cow.
Seriously, you're telling me I spent a year on this damn thing and you tell me the dining room is small. And then that night... But this is the thing. When the view changes, my view before that was I genuinely am asking a question. I want to know the answer. After that, it had changed. No, I'm asking a question to get approval. And she didn't approve of what I had done. So I hated her. But when I went home, I thought, God damn it, she's right. She is right. So what I did, I went and changed the plan. And I made the dining room a bit deeper, and not knowing that after that, it affected two other things except the dining room, which was a very good idea to make it bigger. But also two other things, which the veranda became wider, became a lot nicer than, oh my God, it would have been ugly if it had done it the way that I would have done it before. And honestly, I don't know who this lady is. I didn't see her. I don't remember. If I was here, I would say, thank you, kudos to you. With all the respect, I would just bow to her. But so again, the fact was that, again, the difference, again, I'm trying to make this point very clear. Sometimes we ask questions really with sense of curiosity. When we do ask those questions, then you get an answer. And you're grateful. And by the way, if, as I said, at one point, 95%, if not more of the answers that I would hear, it was repeated, that I've already heard them and I know them. But again, I was grateful till I find that 1, 2, 3% that they had something new to say. But when I changed the concept that now I'm asking for approval, now if you don't say what I want to hear, then I don't like you. So it's very important that when we ask a question, really with a sense of curiosity, to see what you have to say versus I'm seeking approval.
Right.
But then, yeah, anyway, so the drawing was done afterwards, and then afterwards it came to, obviously, the process of building.
Right.
So, and then the question was that, for generaling it, as you know, that I started doing it myself.
Yeah.
And because I had other option, I could get other people to generate it, and actually about 8 general contractors. I hadn't told them anything, but over time they had come to know about the house and thing, and they approached me, but I turned everybody down, and I wanted to do it myself. The very main...
So that then, I asked before, why did you generate yourself? So what I'm getting here is that you wanted to do it yourself because you had a specific design in mind, and you were very very involved. So it was sort of like, because you want it done your way, not your way
kind of
per se, but
yeah,
you wanted to be involved. Like it was special.
Actually, before I don't want to forget this one. When I was doing the design, myself, I was worried about if I want to sell it afterwards, what will happen. Right. And then there was this guy said, Mo, don't worry about it that much. You build what you have. There is somebody who would be interested.
That's true.
And there are people that are not going to be interested. So, you cannot do that. But, again, as a general rule, I did the design with the possibility of ability to change it without, major effect to the integrity of the house. But when it came to the generaling it, there were these few reasons that I did it for. And again, all these things, believe it or not, again, it was asking questions and, having friends, especially Doug, to question me on this thing that, why this, why that? And, he just grilled me, and I welcomed it. This is another thing. Sometimes, again, I keep saying people, they take a challenge or a question as a attack to their, wisdom or something. For me, oh my God, no. I was welcoming that. I was requesting, please, correct me if I'm wrong. And I really went with that view. And then, but the reason that I had, there were 3 major ones. The very top one, that why did I generate myself? One was, I wanted to see, when we say racism and discrimination, how much of it does it exist? This is in 2019.
What?
Okay, I'm just going to explain it.
Okay.
My name being Mohammed, and I'm supposed to be a half terrorist. By default, especially before this COVID hits, and this thing, it was more about that. And I was wondering that, how much does it affect? Normally, as a physical therapist, patients come to me. If they don't want to, they don't come. But when they come, normally they are okay with it. So I want to say that when people, they say that there is discrimination and racism, how much of it does it exist? And how much of it does it affect? Because now I'm going to the other people, seeking their help, versus them coming to me. Okay. So the scenario is a bit different. Okay. So one was that. And believe it or not, at the end, I realized, to be honest, not as much. A lot of it is
Not as much what?
Racism or discrimination is going on. There is a bit maybe.
Not as much or any?
Maybe not at all. To be honest, I don't know. As I didn't notice anything specific.
From standpoint of a subcontractor, which would be what I kind of was, I wouldn't say not racism. I didn't hear anything like that, like any racism stuff. The stuff that we bugged you about was like, doesn't even know.
So it doesn't matter really, who you are. It's just the fact that I'm not a general contractor, right? Yes. I don't have the knowledge.
And eventually we came around, and we're like, okay, and you kept asking, and it was like, and you did take people's opinion into consideration, and even there, like, you would come to me with some crazy idea, and I'd be like, no. I'm not doing that. I'm not tearing half the stuff apart.
That's some good ideas. Come on.
Or I would say no, and right off the bat, I'd be like, no, not happening. Or I'd be like, nope, plumbing inspection isn't gonna let that. That's not gonna fly.
This is the thing. Actually, believe it or not, there were some companies that they refused because they said that you're generaling it, and they knew they were going to have a harder time with somebody who is not a general contractor by profession, which I don't blame them at all.
Yep.
And they are absolutely right, than somebody that doesn't have any experience, so it would be more headache on their end, right. And they chose not to.
But that's also, sure, yeah, it is headache, but it's also a learning opportunity. You know what I mean? Like if you hadn't come to me with some of those ideas where I said no, and then I sat there and I thought about it, and I was mad, and I was like, actually, why am I mad? And actually, I'm like, why? Like, what? Maybe I can do this. And I thought, well, how can I do this within the rules that I have to stick into for code purposes? How can I make this work for this guy? And I'm like, okay. And I take a couple minutes, and I'd be thinking about it. All right, I can do this. I got 2 different ways I can do this. Okay,
as a matter of fact, you're saying that
just an hour later, I'd be like, I can do it.
Actually, this reminds me of, for the mechanical part of it in here, that, for example, normally the heat, of course, again, for people that hear to this, listen to this from different parts of the world, for about almost 8 months of the year in here, you have the furnaces going on for at least 7, 8, something like that.
That's fair. Yeah.
And then for the furnace, for example, the heat comes through these registers in the, obviously, floor. Then what we did, we changed the things. And I honestly did not know how the mechanical thing works. I talked to the mechanical guy, whom you know. I asked him, and he came, and he was nice enough to come. And we had a meeting for 2 hours to explain how the whole thing works. And then what we put the return air all the way up next to the ceiling, because the warm air goes up. And then we put one all the way down for the cold air in summer, that because the air conditioning goes on.
Yeah.
And then we threw the heat, after that with conversation, which you know of it, we threw the heat inside the floor truss.
Yeah.
Which translated to having a heated floor.
To a point.
Actually, not to a point. I have a heated floor. I do have a heated floor. Especially when it is cold, the floor is really warm. And because of that, actually, I walk barefoot there. And
sure, but it's not as efficient as, say, putting in-floor heating in with a proper boiler system. And
I'm not too sure about that. That is okay, but
don't give like those tin guys like any ideas about coming into my boiler space.
Actually, this was one of the things that I told people. I said, you know what? I am very good at physics. You want to challenge me, know exactly what you're doing. Yeah. No, I believe actually the efficiency is different. I'm not going to get into details.
It works good. It works good.
But, and what happened, actually, this thing was something that I did not expect, but because it's a very open concept, in winter, I don't know if I have shown you this, believe it or not, because I turned the heat inside the floor truss on the main floor on, so I get a heated floor. The main floor is 1 to 2 degrees warmer than the second floor. And that is one of the biggest challenges for an open concept, that you have to have a ceiling fan to push the warm air down.
Yeah.
But the way that we did it in here, that happened. So where I'm going with this thing, back to what we were talking a bit earlier, that because of the asking question and asking and then challenging it, actually the mechanical guy that whom and as a matter he asked that if he can use me as a reference because he's going to suggest it to others.
Yeah.
And anyway, it turned out really well. But anyway, back to the original thing I was talking. Why did I generate? One was that, is there any racism or discrimination? But to be honest, I didn't experience anything specific. It was just the fact that if there was something, it was because they didn't want to deal with me because I'm not a general contractor, not because I'm good looking. I mean, because. So the second one thing that I really believed in this: can I get the good out of people? Because it is like the native that they have this expression that they say that in everybody there is a good and bad wolf. Mm-hmm. And then the question, which one wins? The one that you feed.
Yeah.
So, and they really followed this thing. Can I get the good out of people? Then that was another thing. And did I? I think, to be honest, I did. People are generally good. Mm-hmm. Generally good. There are some, but they are generally good. And it was the way that you handle it. You just get the good or the bad version of them. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, another one was that I wanted to be during the whole process and see and make a few changes as the process was going on, which I didn't make too many changes, did I? I'm kidding. Bo got so mad at me at one point. But, the changes that we made, that made it a lot, I would say, for the most part, it made it a lot better. As a matter of fact, believe it or not, as the construction was going on, I had this client of mine that he has been to me back and forth for different reasons over years. When he came, he said that, hey, Mo, about the garage, he gave me some ideas because he loves his cars and he has his garage. The garage is very important to him. And he started to explain, and as I'm treating him, he was laying down, face down, I'm working on his back, and then he's talking about the garage. And I'm listening, and I'm just, doing it in my own head. At one point, I stopped the treatment. I put my hands around his neck. I said, if you say one more word, I'm going to kill you right here. I said, you increased my cost $15,000. I was doing the math in my head too. And actually, you have seen the garage, the fact that, we moved that window there and we put the door on that side and we put the balcony there. Yeah. And this was one of the best thing ever I did. And now the smoker is sitting on that side. It was one of the best thing. And of course, it continues. Then I went on YouTube and I Googled, what do you use your garage for?
Yeah.
Very easily. The garage can be used for a lot of different purposes, for parking car, for mechanic, for, manscape or manscape. I forgot the word.
Manscape.
No, the manscape. Sorry.
Okay.
I just.
Whoa. Don't do that in your garage.
No, not that. But, for example, it can be as an exercise room. It can be, a party room. It can be a lots of different things. And then I went and, decided what I can do to, to make the best usage of garage for me. And I love it, to be honest, the way that it is. Another thing was that, so basically during this process, and I talked to other people, and, every time, it made some changes and things. It made it a little bit, obviously, too many changes, but it made it really good. But it was just all because of asking question and letting people speak. And again, if somebody would say something that I knew, I would never shut them down. I would never say, oh my God, I know that. I never, because if you do that, then obviously they're not willing to talk anymore, and you're having to be respectful. But no, I never did that. I just, even if they would say something that I knew, I would let them talk. And it was amazing. Sometimes when they would say, they would give it a different feel. If you do it, you will see what I'm talking about. It would give it a different feel. And it ended up that I made a lot of even minor changes just because of those influences. Otherwise, on my own, there would be no way I would have come up with that. Mm-hmm. This was interesting. A buddy of mine asked that during this process, because he thought that because I'm going through a lot of details and things, if people are going to hate me. And he said, how many friends did you make? I said, believe it or not, I dealt probably with 35 different contractors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe it. Yeah.
Just with one, we had, actually maybe two, we had a bit of a rough time. Mm-hmm. I mean, I had rough time with some, But because it was handled in a very logical way, it was done, we are very good friends. For example, the guy, I'm not going to say now which one, that they helped me quite a bit even afterwards. I will tell you after the show. But they helped me. So we are very good friends even now. As a matter of fact, when I wanted to do this house, I set up an email that by default, there was some of the things at the bottom of the email. Because I wanted to get the good out of people, out of the contractors. The question every time was like this. I'm building this house for the rest of my house, and I'm not dying anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
How can I build it so that I don't have to fix it as much? So that was one. Two, if this was your own house, how would you do it? I would love to hear from you. So I would put them on the good side, that, to see it from my view.
I don't like that question. If it's your house, how would you do it? I don't like that. It's just for me as someone who does these sort of things. I get that. Well, if it was your house, how would you do it, or would you do that in your house?
Of course, I'm talking not the design. I was talking about the doing the job. That basically you don't run into a problem. That was my question. Okay. Not the design. The design I have already come up with that.
Yeah, but even so, it's like I would prefer you to ask me the question like, how are you going to do this for someone who's paying you who's paying you a really good rate to come up with the best.
Okay, too late. Already I asked those questions.
Yeah, okay. Okay. But that's how I would prefer to look at it rather than what would you do in your own house, because sometimes in your own house, you'll kind of not do the best, or you'll do something crazy just because you can, right? And
you can fix it. I see very well.
I can fix something really, really quick or do something, and and that's not, it's not the same. And it's not to say that you don't do the best work in your own house, but sometimes you do things just to make them work. And when I'm in someone else's house and I'm doing something professionally, I want to do it the best way possible. Mm-hmm. So I don't like that. How would you do it in your house? Well, you know what? I'm going to do it in your house better than I do it in my house.
I didn't say it that way, but then I was just, I said the questions I had, some of these things, and that, and every time I would ask, this was another question that, because during the contract that they would send me, then I would say, are there questions that I haven't asked that I need to ask, that to clarify things before we sign a contract? I would ask that too, because I don't know all of the details, so for a contract, and the question was that, for example, if you have made this contract with other people, have there been places that they haven't been enough clarity for the both parties, and that has caused problem? So believe it or not, most of the time it worked. And some people that they wanted to kind of get the job and do a bad job, or just to brush it off, honestly, you could pick them. And personally, I did that. And it was, again, few and far in between. Most people were very genuine and honest, and it worked really, really well. I should say this, one of the interesting part now, the concept of asking question. After the house is almost built, a buddy of mine asked, Mo, what would you do differently? Have you thought about this? What you have done would do differently about this house? I said, this is one of the dumbest questions. We have dumb questions. This is one of them. And the reason is, I said, you're asking me to go and think hard how not to be happy with what I have done. I'm not going to do that. I said, I'm not going to think about the things that I have already done, and I cannot change them. Thinking that way is I'm thinking hard to be dissatisfied. I'm willing to think about what I can do now to make it even better. Mm-hmm. And said the reason I'm not a general contractor, I'm not going to be building again, I'm not going to learn from my mistakes for next time.
Okay.
Why should I learn? This is a very good point that I would like to make. And I'm very adamant about it, that this is the right way of thinking. Okay. Why should I learn something that is not going to provide me with any purpose? Serve me any purpose? I'm not going to be building another house. Why should I think hard to see what I have made mistakes in here? I'm going to think about, I'm going to put my focus on proper thinking. What I can do now to make it better. So the way you think, it decides how you, the way you feel, this is one of them. And I really practiced it personally.
I guess it's not like you're learning something new in your field of a work or something where you're going to be, like you said, something you're going to be doing all the time. I guess it would be a different situation.
That's good. If I wanted to build another house, sure, then I would go, for example, think hard to say that, okay, what mistakes I made in here. But I said, if the question is that have I noticed anything specific, I said, to be honest, no. And the reason, because I went through this so many times with different people, and I've discussed it so many times that, to be honest, I think everything is perfect. And as I might have said it before a few times, I love this house.
Yeah.
And then, of course, after that was about the backyard that, which last year we finished it. For the backyard, again, for the design, for the design of the backyard, again, I talked to more than 50 people. Because, again, what is a backyard for? You can use it for a playground for the children, or you can have if you have your RVs or cars you want to park there. People have different reasons. But for me, I wanted a house that to give me a feel of being outside. So obviously I made a lot of windows, but at the same time, as you know about the backyard, I made it a lot of up and down, and it has some private parts that if you want to have privacy and you have friends over, you can go in a lower level. If you want to be seen, because it's a corner lot, and you want to socialize with people that they walk in the area, you can sit up there. So, and it worked really, really well. But again, how did it happen? Believe it or not, once I was explaining that to a few friends, and their daughter, who is I think 18, as I was saying, I want this feel from the backyard, and I was explaining, and then she went on her phone, and then she find a picture, and she said, "Is this what you're talking about?" I said, "Yes." I could not put a word to it, but after I was explaining it, she found out, and the finding was that I want something that looks natural, not a groomed backyard.
Right.
Not very pretty with nice flowers and the grass is cut proper. That was not what I was looking for. I wanted to get a feel that I'm outside. And this was, again, another value of talking to people. Sometimes you cannot put it in words. And it's very important. And then I came up with this rule that I told the landscaper. I said, I want this to be like a forest. The only difference in this forest, your shoes don't get dirty. But seriously, that is, and because of that, as you know, the driveway in the front of the house, the grass and the weed and everything grows through it. Yeah. But it gives it as far as I'm concerned, it's a beautiful look. I really, when I come in summer, it just feels like, oh my God, I'm out of the town.
I thought you were crazy when you did that. I looked at it, I was like, that you were explaining to me, and this is nuts. And it actually worked out really well. I had to eat my words there. I was like, oh, well. Yeah.
But again, it was all a matter of, taking a bit of obviously risk, and, but again, I built this primarily for me, but I thought about the option that if you have to obviously sell it, that you're not stuck. And to be honest, most of the time people, they say that yes, it is very custom, but at the same time, it is something that most people like. So if one day I decide for any reason to sell it, I'm hoping I should not have as much problem because of being so private. I mean, so
particular.
Yeah, so particular and custom. Mm-hmm. And really, as I just obviously love it. And the whole idea was, and this was one of the things that we talked about. I said, Doug, if I want to build it in a more of a normal way, it would cost me so much less. I don't want to give the numbers now, but it would cost me so much less. But if I want to make it a bit more custom for my liking, yes, I'm spending this much money more. But now if I spend this much money more, then I get these things for it. Every day I want to come home, and in all honesty, it has done that.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing too, from say a contractor's viewpoint. You coming in and changing things, right? It's an added cost, and a lot of the times people won't accept that they come in, they want to change something, but well, why does it cost more? And it's like, well, because you have to go back and you have to change this. You were very accommodating in that aspect. You know, if you were told up front, well, this is going to cost more, you were like, okay, you know.
Then you make a decision.
Or of course you want to know how much, correct, right? And then you can say, okay, like, is this worth it or not? You know, yeah. I found that too. So you have to keep an open mind about that sort of
for
thing
sure.
as well.
And as you remember, you know, even I was asking the contractors, every single one of them, that what I should do next.
Yeah.
But anyway, of course, this podcast went a bit longer than I was hoping for, but I'm hoping that it was well worth it. Now, as usual, that I normally say this, you know, at the very end, again, the best way to get a hold of us, again, is through the email by info@lifeworkshop.ca. And if you check the website, you know, normally you get most of the information and things there, and then all the podcast episodes are there, as well as, because we put them on the podcast platforms, you know, a little bit slower, but everything is on the YouTube and our website. And as always, again, life is simple. We make it complicated. And to do me a favor, if you want to support us, please share this podcast with other friends. And I'm hoping that, you know, everybody finds it a kind of more useful. And the question of the day at the very end is this again: do you ask question more often from your friends, or you think that, oh, I'm not going to bother them? Because remember, a lot of time we create the limitations on us, not others. We think we are bothering people by asking question or other things, or by asking for help. As a matter of fact, most often, not all the time, most often people are willing to help, and it's a kind of a validity when, you know, you just ask them to help you, and, you know, ask a question to see their, you know, to see what they have to say. So, but again, what's the limiting factor? Is you or the others? But anyways, so if you can ask them, say that, do you ask enough questions from other people when you want to do something? Again, thanks everybody, and love you guys, and take care.
Bye-bye.